My name is Jon Brage Svenning. I'm from Tromsø. I have a degree from the UiT, and I work for a company called Sintef Nord, which is part of Sintef. And I'm going to talk about aquaculture today, but first I want to introduce you to something we call the global fertilizer crisis. And I assume that most of you know that we are totally dependent on artificial fertilizers to produce enough food through agriculture to support the world's population. And the global fertilizer crisis refers to the fact that this dependency on fertilizers is unsustainable. So first of all, the production of nitrogen, which is the most important artificial fertilizer we make, it consumes 2% of the world's energy, which is a lot. And also we need phosphorus, and we get phosphorus through mining phosphorus rock. And phosphorus rock is a finite resource, so we're going to run out of it at some point. And some of the countries, or most of the countries that used to export high volumes of phosphorus rock are now keeping it for themselves because they're sort of running out. And then in addition to that, there's other challenges in relation to using synthetic fertilizers such as soil degradation and ammonia release and runoff from agriculture and eutrophication of water bodies. And then in recent years especially, we've seen rising energy costs and then supply chain challenges. So we are dependent on finding sustainable alternatives to synthetic or mineral fertilizers. And why am I telling you this? Well, as you know, Norwegian aquaculture releases vast quantities of inorganic components through the production of salmon. So a salmon releases inorganic components in the form of dissolved inorganic nutrients, so in the liquid fraction of the waste, and then also in the sludge. And this is a problem for the industry. First of all, it's contributing to eutrophication of water systems. And also, it's a resource that is going to waste. We should be taking advantage of that. So this issue is not new, and it's not isolated to the aquaculture sector. And now we're seeing many regulations and laws coming into force that are directly targeting the inorganic output from industry. And while Norwegian aquaculture still isn't targeted directly by these regulations, they probably will be in not too long. So we're going to have to find a solution to reduce the inorganic output from aquaculture. But anyway, if you look at these numbers, and then you compare them to the amounts of inorganic nutrients that we need in Norway to perform agriculture, you'll notice that we could cover almost all of that demand from aquaculture alone, in theory. So in practice, that is, of course, very difficult because most of the aquaculture we do is represented by open net pen salmon farms in which recovering inorganic nutrients is highly unpractical. But this limitation is beginning to shift with the rise of land-based aquaculture in these recirculating aquaculture systems. And there's two important traits in RAS that greatly lower the economic and technical threshold of recovering inorganic nutrients. First of all, a RAS facility is fully dependent on water treatment systems, so installing additional technology to recover inorganic nutrients is relatively straightforward. And also, land-based systems operate in fresh or slightly brackish water, so that means we can make organic fertilizers for food production systems without worrying about sodium and chloride in our fertilizers. And this is exactly what we're doing in the project I'm going to talk about today, which is called NutriCycle, where we're developing technology to recover the dissolved fraction of inorganic nutrients from recirculating aquaculture systems. So the project is an IPN, which means Innovation Project for the Industrial Sector, funded by the Norwegian Research Council, 3-year duration, and we're in our final year now. And it's owned by a company called Columbia Farms, and they've also produced this video which shows our physical setup down at Landvik. So we have our physical setup in Grimstad, where they have an operating RAS facility. So we take the wastewater, we separate it into 2 streams using our technology that we installed there. There's clean water and inorganic nutrient concentrate. We put the clean water back to the fish, and then we use the inorganic nutrients to cultivate plants. So this is our vertical growth house that we installed in the project, and then we also have access to more conventional solutions like this hydroponic facility in Grimstad, and we're also doing field trials outside of the facility on like open field cultivation. And I can't really share the details of the technology, I'm not allowed to, but part of it is using ultrafiltration and reverse osmosis to create two liquid streams. One where all the inorganic nutrients from the effluent water is trapped, and then clean water that we can recycle back to the RAS plant. And of course, we want to use this inorganic concentrate as a fertilizer. So we designed 2 studies to test the functionality of our concentrate, and I'm going to go quickly over those now. So the first one focused on storage stability. So if you look at mineral fertilizers, one of the key features of a mineral fertilizer or an artificial synthetic fertilizer is that it's very stable during storage. So you don't have to worry about nutrient integrity or microbial degradation during storage. And this is important because consumers, like, for example, a farmer, they will stock up with everything they're going to need for a full growth season or even longer without worrying about quality loss during storage. So we realized pretty quickly that if we're going to enter any market dominated by conventional fertilizers, we would need to show that our product also has storage stability. So we designed a study where we stored our concentrate for 6 months, and then we took samples where we added pasteurization as an added layer of conservation. And then we took samples regularly and sent those for chemical and microbiological analysis by Eurofins and a Dutch company called Kytos. And what we found is that our concentrate is stable both chemically and microbiologically for at least 6 months. You can see we have lots of results, but I've only shown here the concentration of nitrate at the top, and then the viable cell load, which says something about the amount of living cells in your sample. And you can see that the pasteurization process initially reduced the viable cell load, but then it quickly recovered, and then they sort of balanced out over time. So based on this study, we can see that our inorganic concentrate is storage stable, and we just took the 1-year sample time point, and we're waiting for the results from those. And we've also submitted the article, so it's under review right now. Second study was to test if our inorganic concentrate can substitute or replace conventional mineral fertilizers. Obviously, the inorganic components that are available through the liquid waste of a RAS facility do not fully replace a mineral fertilizer because it doesn't contain everything the plant needs. For example, phosphorus is mainly locked up in the sludge fraction, the solid fraction. So some components you have to add to balance your inorganic concentrate to make like a full plant fertilizer. So we wanted to see how much of this mineral fertilizer can we replace with our concentrate without compromising yield or product quality. And what we found is that we can replace up to 90% of the potassium and more than 70% of nitrate from mineral fertilizer using our inorganic concentrate. And I think if you look at the total composition of our inorganic concentrate, we're replacing something like 65% of the mineral fertilizer that you would otherwise need. And our results show that we can do this without compromising yield or product quality. So we have 4 cultivars of leafy greens that we tested this on over several months. So, of course, you can use this inorganic concentrate as a substitute for mineral fertilizer. It is storage stable. And then we are performing ongoing trials to test open field cultivation. And this will be my last slide, because the reason we're testing open field cultivation is because of this Some people call it the challenge of volume. You can also say the opportunity of volume. That's how we're sort of trying to think of it. But I'm going to exemplify this with, this is Hima Seafood's newest land-based RAS facility at Rjukan. It opened last year. This facility is scaled to produce 8,000 tons of trout per year. So it's not a hatchery, it's a full-size fish. And this facility, even though it's like 8,000 tons, it's not a lot when you compare it to our total production, which is like 1.5 million tons of salmonid fish. But this facility alone will generate 704 tons of nitrogen per year. So let's say you want to sort of try to get rid of that nitrogen in a sustainable way and getting rid of all of it. So what most people sort of present initially is like, okay, let's think about putting up a greenhouse and then we can supply the local community with fresh vegetables. Like that's like the obvious sort of first thing that comes into your head. Well, with 704 tons of nitrogen, you can actually produce 290,000 metric tons of tomatoes because tomatoes have a nitrogen requirement of 2.4 kilograms per ton. So the reason I'm telling you this is to like show you that any technology or any solution that we develop to have a meaningful impact on the inorganic output of aquaculture needs to be scaled to these huge volumes that we can generate from aquaculture. And that's why we're doing open field cultivation trials to sort of see if our product has any potential of entering the only sort of industry that is scaled to take away all of this inorganic fertilizer, and that is, of course, traditional agriculture. So we'll see how these open field trials go and then keep optimizing the process to sort of reduce the production cost so that one day we might enter that market and you'll find our product somewhere. Anyway, thank you very much. That was all I had.
Thank you so much, Jon Brage, for a very interesting talk. We have time for questions from the audience before we finish for today. No questions? Okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Thank you for a nice presentation. You mentioned in the first slides that actually the fish farming is also release a lot of phosphorus, right?
Yes.
Did you measure the phosphate concentration in your concentrated samples?
Yes, I mean, we have a full overview of the chemical composition, but I can't remember the exact amount, but it's very low in the liquid fraction.
Okay.
It is present, but it's very low.
Yeah.
So you'll have to get it from somewhere else. It doesn't have to be from mineral fertilizers. You can probably get it from the sludge eventually, if you want.
Yeah.
But there's not high amounts of it in the liquid fraction.
Okay, that's surprising. One more question.
You said phosphorus, right?
Phosphate.
Oh, phosphate. Okay.
Yeah. One more question. Since you are using it's a fish waste from the RAS to produce another vegetable, tomato, for instance, for human food. Are there any regulations about this?
Yes.
Are we allowed to use a waste from one animal to produce food?
Well, it depends. If you can show Mattilsynet and the governing bodies that you're sanitizing your product in a way that they find permissible, then you can use it. But there's also regulations on the content. So heavy metals is, of course, the risk here.
Yeah.
If you accumulate too many heavy metals when you're concentrating your liquid fraction, then you enter these brackets where you're not allowed to use your...
Okay.
But fortunately for us, the heavy metals are mostly deposited in the sludge again.
Okay.
So we have analyses of heavy metals that show that we're in the green zone for our substrate, no fertilizer.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks again. One final applause for Jon Brage.